Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Inside the Creator's Mind with Taylor, creator of Legion's Realms at War TCG. And today's topic is a bit of a doozy. I think it's something that, once again, doesn't really get looked at or talked about enough. And that is like what is the common pitfalls when it comes to game design? What are the common pitfalls when it comes to launching a game, getting it out into the market, just adapting to the ever-changing TCG landscape? So we're going to dive into that a little bit more here. And I think that the number one thing when you're viewing a trap, a situation, a pitfall, ultimately, the thing that's going to surprise you, sneak up on you, change your plans, maybe it throws a wrench into your game design, into your game mechanics, maybe it throws a wrench into your release schedule, how the boxes are designed, or how the inevitability of product being delayed, or material costs going up. What are the common pitfalls coming in? Basically, you're coming in as a new creator, you're coming in blind, and it's up to you, it's up to the creator to be willing to learn, be willing to adapt, and be willing to figure it out, trial by fire, right? And so I think the number one thing, the first most common pitfall, has to be being just too naive. We all fall into that trap at any point in our life, particularly when we're young and we're teenagers and we think we know it all, and we figure out very quickly that we don't. We're always quick to brush off advice from our elders or people who have been through it, and it's no different in the TCG space. It's no different in the business of trading cards and the gaming business in general. Being too naive, it hits us all. It's just a matter of how you're willing to adapt, how you're willing to change and grow with that, and take your licks and learn, right? So I think that a very big and early common pitfall is just being too naive. And what does that mean? So I think that not doing enough research, research into your demographic, research into your location and your plan of attack to get a game out to market. What is your target audience, and what kind of stores are you going to talk to, and how are you going to go about marketing it? And it's not just as easy as it sounds. The whole point of these episodes in this series is just to go through and really kind of shed some light on the trials and the tribulations of making a game, launching a game, and sustaining a game. And so these are the kind of things that I want to try and open people's eyes a little bit more to seeing just the sheer challenge that you're faced with as a indie TCG creator, an independent gaming company, and the things that happen, right? And so it all boils down to not doing enough research. Also just like going through and not taking enough feedback, not continuing to consistently learn. And that's the thing, is you have to have an open mind. When you're a creator, when you're a developer of a game, it's so close to you. You keep it so close to your chest, you protect it with everything you got. And we talked earlier in previous episodes about the passion and the hustle, and you need to have those things, for sure. But at the same time, you also got to be able to view things objectively, and you got to be able to see what your consumer sees. You got to be able to see what your target audience sees, and what do they want to see, what do they expect. And the expectations in the TCG and gaming world are far harder to achieve than people first notice or people first recognize when coming into this and deciding to do this as a career, or deciding to do this as to make a legitimate game to a mass market. So like I said, doing their research, putting the hours in, and I'm not talking just the hours of figuring out card game mechanics and how it's going to work, and your plan of attack, and that's all great to have. You got to have those things in place. You got to look forward, but you ultimately got to take things one step at a time. And I think that, not listening to early feedback, whether that be from your community at large, whether that be from your game testers, the people you have closest to you, ultimately, they always talk about you don't go into business with your friends, because your friends are going to have your back no matter what. They think like you, they act like you most of the time, and as honest as they're going to be, they also know that this is close to your chest, that this is your baby, that you've been working on it, and they're not maybe necessarily going to give you the most accurate advice, or they're not going to necessarily say something that they know is going to upset you or force you to go back to the drawing board. It's just, you got to keep an open mind as a creator. You got to not be naive, and you got to understand that this is a grind. I cannot stress that enough. So thinking you have something that everyone will want is another huge pitfall, because you can come out and be like, yeah, I'm going to be the best game there is. I'm going to do all this stuff that Magic couldn't do. I'm going to do the things that people hate in Magic. I'm going to change it so that these are just better. Or you look at it as, people don't like this mechanic in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm going to take this mechanic, make it better, fix the things based on what they have, and just reskin it and push it forward. Or I'm going to take the collectability of Pokemon and I'm going to make it better. But those three games particularly, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, the ones we commonly know as the big three in the trading card game world, those three are there and they're not going away. They've been there for 25 plus years, and there's a reason for that. So once again, it goes back to doing your research, and learning more about the industry, and not continuing to learn. There's a reason why they're Goliaths. There's a reason why they've been around so long. Because they're not trying to be something that they know they're not. And so thinking you have something that everyone will want, most of the time that's not the case. Because what you like isn't always what everyone else likes. So you have to understand that you're not going to change the people. You're not going to change the player. You're not going to change the consumer. Their mind is made up. They're set in their ways. They have a level of expectations that they're forcing you to meet, or we're going to move on to a new game, another game, or back to our old faithfuls. So you have to look at this as that you got to understand that you got to give something to the community, to the player base, to the TCG world at large, something that they want, something that they expect, and something that's going to continue to keep their interest. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, number one, I think we go back to another pitfall, because you're thinking about that. Maybe you're ahead of the curve and you avoided those first pitfalls, and now you find yourself in a much bigger one. And I think a lot of indie TCG creators stumble into this one by accident, and that is trying to do too many things too fast, or on the other side, not producing enough products or making too small of sets. Because you got to find the happy medium. We're talking about expectations. I think you're looking at a common pitfall here is, if you're trying to do too many things too fast, I'm going to make starter products, I'm going to make a booster box, I got auxiliary products here, I got blister packs here, I got these nice amazing bundles, I got a special holiday set, I got a Valentine's Day set, I got a Christmas product, and you're trying to do all these things. And I like to bring it back to an analogy like when you go out for dinner and you have restaurants that have a menu, you have restaurants that are buffets, and you have restaurants that have a menu and a buffet. So when you look at it, You like, sure, I like the variety that has the menu and the buffet. But if they're trying to do two things or too many things, then you spread yourself too thin. You put yourself in a position where you can't really perfect one thing because you're trying to cover so many bases. It's like a war on multiple fronts. So, in the early days, a common pitfall, you have to figure out what your niche is, figure out exactly what product you want to launch with, what product you want to push, and key into that. You know, you got to meet the expectations, everybody, with your product, but you also have to look at the fact that if you try and do too many things and spread too thin, especially being a small indie TCG or a small independent company, you don't have the man hours, you don't have the head count of people to help you, and you're going to have yourself run ragged, and then you're going to be doing stuff at half quality, and you're ultimately going to fail on multiple fronts. So I think trying to do too many things too fast, too rapid of a release schedule, just too many SKUs, too many variants of products, I think that's definitely a pitfall that happens a little further down the road, when you're looking to launch or looking to try and grow your game at a decent rate. I think another common pitfall is thinking that an LGS will just take your product, will just take a chance on you and buy it. And so I think that's where we go back to being too naive, is you come in and you're like, well, I'm going to make this product and I'm going to sell it to stores and they're going to carry it on their shelves and the players will just buy it because they're interested in it. The box looks flashy. And yeah, good job. All good. Move on to the next product. That's not how it works. The grassroots, the organic growth, the grind, the push, it is insane. It is tireless. It is thankless. And I mentioned previously in one of these episodes was you gotta love it because it doesn't love you back. Ever. And like just thinking that LGSs are just going to pick up your product and carry it? No. The amount of times you walk into a store, you either cold call, you message them, you get to run around, sometimes they don't reply. Because they're a busy place and there's, they don't have a lot of man hours, they're trying to run events, maybe they're just not interested, maybe they got burned by other games in the past and they're not willing to take a chance, maybe they're just strapped for cash because some of the big three have a rapid release cycle and it's an ever flow of money going out and they're trying to keep players in, and there's many reasons, there's a multitude of them, but to just walk in and go, I have a new game, you're immediately going to get the hand going, no, sorry, we're not interested, or come back to us when you got more, or when you have a real data, when you have a real player base, right? So I'm not saying LGSs aren't willing to help, but you gotta put them in a position where they can succeed. You have to put them in a position where they're willing to take your product because they know it'll move. LGSs don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of spare capital laying around. So they have to have something that they know will move. And that's a lot of faith to put into something that's brand new. So I think that, once again, just going back to that common pitfall that if you build it, they will come. That's not it at all. It can't be overstated how much work and how much grind and the door-to-door, the days, the months, the years really, of just the grind of not only just making sure you have a great game mechanics-wise and aesthetics, but being able to figure out how to build a player base, how to ultimately get product into the player's hands, and how to earn that LGS's trust. I think that's huge, and that's what I mean is those are some of the common pitfalls, I think, that don't really get talked about, or if they do, it's on a small level. So once again, it's a short episode, something that we're just doing to scratch the surface, and it's definitely another topic that we're going to dive into more in depth as we take a trip down that rabbit hole. But it's been awesome to have you guys here listening, and until the next episode, this was Inside the Creator's Mind, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.